Okay, as we're sitting here at LTV on this beautiful morning, indeed a beautiful morning post Labor Day weekend, September 5th. I can't believe I hear myself actually saying September. September 5th, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello Show. And my name is Haim Mizrahi, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello Show that's been on there since 1980. And of course, I usually say not to forget to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, but unfortunately, Fraser passed away a couple of weeks ago in his sleep at age 101, and we plan to commemorate his incredible uh, project, a lifetime project that never ended really, of a hands-on approach and reality to establishing this wonderful concept called public access in the shape of LTV here in Wainscott of Long Island, New York. So, of course, we'll have enough time to bring the people to talk about him, and of course, you know that I'm capable of sitting here and having my monologue. And of course, I think in the last 24 years there wasn't one day that went by without me mentioning his name at least a couple of times. So we're proud to have had him here and to be a part of what he erected and built, and as it is proving itself to be a wonderful, viable, contributing, positive, constructive, and I can go on forever reality. Andrew Bailey is here with us this morning, and with Andrew, we can also discuss these things with Andrew. Just to remind the audience out there that Andrew is a all around artist that and when it comes to experience and goodwill and hands-on again participation with that which he believes in so much, he's second to none. So good morning, Andrew. Good to see you. Good to have you
Hey, good morning,
with,
Chaim.
with
Thank
us.
you for that intro and my love and farewell blessings to Frazier. He was a good friend back in the 80s and the 90s. Good man, just extraordinary visionary. And what he has done here is such a blessing for the entire community on the east end of Long Island.
Yeah, it's amazing how much one person can contribute, huh? With it came natural to him, so that made it even more special. Like with you, things come natural to you, don't they?
You know, I get my instructions and I get to work. Very often these days, I sit meditating in the morning and I get an idea that simply appears. And it's like, okay, get up, get to work, make a new painting, do a new piece of music, come up with some adventure. We're working on a new film as we speak here as well. Jaime, I don't know
So
if
do
you
you
know
give
about that.
yourself instructions also, or
No, I just
instructions from
listen.
the outside
I'm
world?
a good listener. And when it says to me, so this is not me trying to figure out should I do next. Never. There's always a list of projects that just appear when the time is right for them to appear.
Yes, definitely. So I guess that it comes natural when you think about the relationship between all the mediums that you're involved in. It's a no-brainer how they're intertwined and how they contribute to one another, all the way from music to writing to photography to paintings and all that. So what is it? What's the thread that's actually connecting everything?
Hmm. So I think I'd like to talk about art because that's foremost right now. The thing I'm most excited about. I'm excited about many things, but number one is actually my current digital art output that has evolved amazingly to the point where I'm now able to do. I have a box right here of little tiny cheap prints that I can show you of some of the work. And then we've got a show coming up, thanks to you, in the month of October right here at LTV. So I'm really looking forward to that. But how did this begin? So I was 17 years old and I was in Durban, South Africa, a great town for spearfishing, surfing, sailing, all of those ocean activities. That was my world. And I hadn't really I'd thought about spiritual matters because one of my buddies at high school got into Buddhism when he was 14 and introduced us to Zen Buddhism with 14-year-olds. So that was something. But when I was 17, one of my spearfishing buddies said, "Why don't you come over to my house? It's my sister's birthday. There's a little party." So I said, sure. So I go over to his house. I'd never been to his home. And I meet his sister on her 16th birthday. Long story short, she became my first sweetheart for the next 5 years until she won an art scholarship that took her to Europe. And we parted company for 24 years and then got back together again 24 years later, not as lovers, but as best friends until her recent
I love
passing.
it.
And point being, she was an extraordinary artist and she was at the art college. And so I was a science guy. I was a chemistry major, chemistry, physics, mathematics. But my girlfriends were always painters, artists, pianists, musicians. And I didn't think I could ever be a musician. Could I ever be a musician, this guy? Could I ever be an artist? Because they had something that I did not have.
Even though naturally you were,
But I,
by way of personality and everything,
so
correct?
what's really weird, I'm just remembering this. As a 5 or 6 year old, I used to do these landscapes of these series of mountains and things. And I remember my teacher when I was a little kid saying, this kid has artistic talent. I forgot that until this week. And I suddenly remembered that again. So, okay, so something's in there. You either have it or you don't, right? But what I did with these girlfriends of mine who in the College of Art, very significant college of art in southern Africa. People came from all over Africa and actually all over the world to attend this particular college. And that's where my girlfriends were studying. And I would go not to the art technique classes of theirs, but I would go to the art history and read all of their textbooks on art history and sit in on these classes while I was going up on the hill to the university and studying chemistry. I'm down in town studying art. I didn't realize that at the time. It was just interesting. But boy, did that influence me to understand. So I now have, shall I say, 60 years of art history backing up my current work.
Yes.
I know the history of art. And
Yeah.
now, as I'm suddenly able to do something I couldn't do before, because the way it worked for me, photography. I had a girlfriend who won an international modeling contest, and a friend of mine who took the photograph, I said to him a couple of weeks after she won this competition, I said, would you lend me your camera? I'd really like to,
To
figure
see,
out this. And in fact,
yeah.
I'm a chemist, so I can mix chemicals, and I'm a mathematician, so I can calculate exposures. Maybe there's something I can do with photography. He lent me his camera, set it up, put the film in, did all that stuff. I took this beautiful girl out to the beach and took all these photographs. And then he developed them for me and did it all for me. It was painless. And I got it back and I went, oh my goodness, I think I've discovered my art form. So that 1965 to this day, photography. I have a show coming up in Maine, opening on September 21st. So photography is a big deal in my life. However, lurking in the background was this art guy, this artist. So the photography can be art. Photography certainly is one of the fine arts. So in I think it was 82, at the School of Visual Arts, I was living out here in the Hamptons, working in the city, doing a lot of work in the city, and going to school at night, doing my master's in literature at Hunter College, and going to the School of Visual Arts and studying a very new field known as digital graphics.
Yeah.
And I got my hands on a very expensive, one of a kind computer graphics system and started scanning in my black and white photographs and turning them into colored pop art. That was the beginning of what I'm doing now. But it was so
yes.
difficult and so time consuming and so frustrating that I didn't really pursue it. It was just too much work. I was raising a bunch of kids, as you know. I was simply didn't have the time to devote. Now what has happened is the technology has evolved to the point where I can have a dream and manifest that dream very swiftly.
So as because like in the face of your multiple mediums that you had so much passion towards, you raised a family of five. I mean, and I know firsthand what it really means. And you were such a natural as a dad because I remember you in those days where your kids were young. Was that something that came natural to you, or something that you worked hard for to actually to? accomplish that, to accomplish being a successful dad. People don't realize to what extent it's a profession. It's a job to raise kids and to be a husband and slash a father and all this in the face of all this passion that you have towards so much creativity. So how did they coexist? How did you have to rationally control all this in order, or did it just came natural to you?
So, firstly, of course, our culture does not train us to be a parent. You get suddenly your sweetheart is
But
pregnant.
Mother Nature grants us with that natural.
So we have these natural tendencies, and because we no longer live in a village where there's a kind of support there still is in certain traditional cultures, where every child has dozens and dozens of aunties and uncles, right? In this nuclear family, it is challenging. So that's firstly the challenge of, here you are in a house with a partner and a bunch of kids. Ooh, so it's challenging on the one hand. At the, on the other end of that spectrum, it's
But
the
how do you
most,
keep it together? Because every
so
day is
it's,
potential.
it's the most inspiring thing I can imagine. The most inspiring thing I ever did was to have 5 kids with a girl from South Africa who I met in New York City. And she was crazy enough to have 5 kids with me. And I was crazy enough to have 5 kids with her. So that was that story. I'm the oldest of 5, and I'm the father of 5. So,
I'm the middle of 5,
ah,
father of 5. So,
uh-huh.
but but still, aspiration aside and reality aside, because we don't always. Mother Nature doesn't really grant us with this precision unfoldingness of that which we feel so passionate towards, and we realize that we need to work harder than we thought we will.
It's really hard work.
Yeah, really hard work. And I know I started painting paintings when I was like 38. The first time I showed artwork was 38. No aspirations, no evolutionary process. Suddenly, my girlfriend then told me, she saw me paint and she said, I don't know you're doing it, but it looks beautiful. And as soon as she said it looks beautiful, my low self-esteem kicked in and told me, no, it's not. There's no way. I was just fooling around with it. But the thing is, there was a grace period where I felt like I could never go wrong. And then when I realized that I have to start introducing more kind of uh, make a decision, this if this is going to be a part of my life or not, then I realized how difficult it is. So I did have the opportunity to make it or break it, keep it or leave it, like literally. And of course, I decided to keep it, and I realized this is more than I ever bargained for. But because I'm a person that takes one thing at a time, and because this is my nature and my personality, then it wasn't so terrible. But the hard work now, 27 years later, I don't feel like it's easier because progressing every day introduces a set of ingredients into reality that requires the entire attention, the entire level of devotion and responsibility. So, in that sense, I can really sympathize with you and what you're saying and all that. So, how do you improve your journey of art in the face of so many responsibilities? Because obviously there's only 24 hours a day. I mean,
So the answer to that, Haim, is that I did very little art during a certain period of my life. I had one night a week in Manhattan where I devoted that to art, and that was only for a few months because I was also studying theater. So I was going to acting school. I was getting my master's in English literature and screenwriting at Hunter College. And I was mostly passionately involved in creating music. So every Monday night, I was in a recording studio in Manhattan. Tuesday night was my art night, whatever the art form was. Thursday night was my academic, getting my master's, completing my master's. Wednesday night was time to get on the train and come back out east from the city to the kids' baseball games and so on at school. So every Wednesday, religiously, I came home. Every Friday night, I came home for the weekend. Every Monday morning, I went back into the city. So I was gone for 3 nights a week. And on those 3 nights, I was in my 40s. I was in my prime of energy and inspiration and creativity and making very good money. So I was able to really function and have those nights to myself. So Andrew could have a life. And then Susan and the children were, I was with them 4 nights of the week, and they were on their own for 3 nights of the week. And that was hard on Susan. I
Yeah,
understand that.
yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
was not easy. But what was going on out here, there was
But she
one.
was an artist also, which
So she was primarily a dancer, but also an aspiring musician. She can pick up a guitar and compose a song. She's got a lot going. But what was out here was great when the kids were little was a, a collection of young mothers, of young ladies who would, in that same period when they were having their babies and having play groups with the little children, there was a lot of support among the mothers for each other.
as it is now
Because the
also, I can
dads,
tell you,
yeah,
yeah.
because where were the dads? They were absent fathers. Why were we absent fathers? Because we had to work and make a lot of money to support this system. We had no alternative. The way the system works in this nuclear family, dad has to work, generally speaking. Mom has to stay home and take care of the kids. Now, John Lennon did it differently. He became the stay at home dad, right?
Yes.
And so they tried that, but they were billionaires. So that's a
Yeah, so
different
this was
situation.
it. It
Yeah,
was just
different
like
option. But in my case, there was no alternative. I'm an immigrant here. My wife's an immigrant. No parents, no dad or mom you could run to and say, please help us financially or please come look after the kids. We had none of that.
yeah,
So it
yeah.
was challenging. But what was successful was firstly the kids, you know, the kids. The kids have grown up. They're wonderful adult human beings right now, I do believe. Secondly, I was able to maintain myself and develop myself for my sanity, for my therapy. To this day, when I paint, whenever I feel stressed or anxious, you know what I do? I make a piece of art,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I made one since I last saw you. I created a brand new painting that I'm going to show you. I think it's going to be in the show. And I just had an idea. I was meditating in the morning. I had an idea, and I get down and I make this piece of art. It's called Four Warhols in Drag. I think you might like it.
I love the title. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So, but so evidently most. I mean, all your kids. I mean, if you think of Dan Bailey and the rest of the kids, they were so musically oriented. Um, so I always say, when people approach me and when they see my kids and all this, and they said, when we see your kids here, we know this doesn't just happen on its own. It takes two great parents to create, to raise kids like what we see now here in front of us. This is not accidental. You know what I mean? So it's always nice to figure that people are paying attention, and like you say, what you just described still is happening. The group of tight families,
Right, of
of
course.
mothers and fathers and kids, and this constant messaging and planning, and it's never ending. It's like sometimes, at the beginning it took me a while to adjust to all this. Now it's second nature, but still, it's all that tight net and network that makes it bearable, if for lack of a better word, and all this. So share with the audience, because let me just mention that we're here with Andrew Bailey, and Andrew is a longtime friend and is a longtime resident of these parts of Long Island, a fantastic creative individual, and we get the chance to see his work here at LTV for the month of October, as we have our own traditional group art shows here at LTV. So, what is it that people should expect with your work coming up this October?
Okay. So when you offered me this show, I have a body of work. I have lost count. I don't know, but I have 100 pieces or something. Because they're digital, I can simply store them. I can pull them up, I can modify them if I need to, and I can print them at any size whatsoever. The new technology, there's something called Resize AI. I can now take those images that I created and make them 16 feet by 16 feet if I want to, make them the size of a Sunset Boulevard billboard.
Yeah.
So I thought, what would I do? So on the website, and I don't know if you've seen my website, CameronBaxterGalleries.com. That's Connie's and my website. Cameron's my middle name, Baxter's Connie. Baxter is Connie's middle name, so we're CameronBaxterGalleries.com. I have different collections or series. So one of my series is called Queen of America. So this is the one I've chosen. Who is the queen? It asks a question. Who is the Queen of America?
More than one, you know.
Well, there's more than one painting.
No, I mean, but yeah.
So they're portraits of queens. Some of those queens are cross-dressing drag queens. Some of them are beautiful women.
Oh.
Like if somebody said, who in your vision, Haim, is the Queen of America? So, and
Kennedy.
Jackie Kennedy?
Yeah, with
Jackie Kennedy or Elizabeth Taylor or Marilyn Monroe or Andy Warhol.
Oh.
Think about Andy Warhol.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Who got seriously into cross-dressing and doing self-portraits as a cross-dresser. So he's one of my pieces. The four Warhols in drag. He's wearing a Marilyn Monroe wig, and he's got a crown on his head. And it's Andy. It's Warhol.
Yeah.
Why not? Being out here inspired me because he's such a presence here still.
Yes, of course.
He's gone, right?
And will be for a long time.
Exactly.
Yes, that's so. So, are you subject-oriented or technique-oriented, or both?
It's really both. Forever, since at least 1980, I've had in my mind a vision of an ability that I did not have, and I sensed that technology would one day deliver that ability. So I mentioned the School of Visual Arts and this very difficult process for me in terms of creating these works. I'll show you. I have one piece I could show you from back then. It's pretty cool, but it's not. It was uncontrollable. I could not control it. I wanted to be able to present whatever this picture is in my mental, just like you. But most artists have the ability. They've gone to school, they've studied, they know the brushwork, they know the techniques, if they're using oils and a knife or whatever they're doing, or sprays and all these various techniques. In my case, it became digital before Photoshop. 4 years before Photoshop, before the first iteration of Photoshop, I was doing digital pop art. And it was exciting, but frustrating. And I didn't have time. So I'd put it aside. And then every so often, a new generation Photoshop emerged. And at first, it was terrible. It was horrible. And then slowly, it became creative and interesting. And then these other companies started developing software that would help one to take a black and white photograph, for example, and turn it into whatever you want to turn it into. Change backgrounds, change colors, change black and white, and you could take it and make a colorful display. Now it's amazing what one can do and how relatively easy it is. I use 6 different programs in my process.
So again, in the face of how technology makes things easier for us, supposedly, some people say, so what's left for the individual to offer to the process? But isn't it? I mean, from my first handings, isn't it true to say that actually, no matter what is it that the equipment offers to us to make our life easier to execute our ideas, still, once you start, you realize that you're lost in the center of that desert, and you realize that you fail to think that you need water to drink, the very basic thing. So you prepared everything, but then you have no water, and you say, how could have I ignored that, or how could have I failed not to, even though you had those kind of 5 gallons of water, and you had your hand on that handle, and for some reason something distracted you, and you let go, and you forgot to take the water with you. So you're fully ready and equipped, but you cannot survive. So what is it in that territory that you just described that still poses as a challenge?
So it is true to some extent that the technology makes it easier, but it's not so much that it makes it easier. It does. For someone like me, don't do code. Back 15, 17 years ago, you needed to be a coder. You needed to be able to write digital code in order to do what I'm doing now. But then in the interim, people created these programs that assist the artist. So the tools have changed. Think about your techniques, which have to do with paint on canvas with brushes and physical tools. The metaphysical tools, or the digital or the virtual tools we now get to use, are still just tools. And I suspect that the water you were mentioning, which is perhaps a metaphor for inspiration, that which we need, because you could take two humans with exactly the same technology, and there's no way the first one will produce anything that you would call art.
Hmm.
And you take the second person, and because that person has the water, has the inspiration, has the vision, that somehow that visionary impulse helps when you're molding the end result. And once you have learned the tools to the point where you know what you're looking for and you know what actions will have what results, it's just like, to me, it's like taking the brush and sticking it in the paint and putting it on the canvas. It's a digital canvas, and all the tools are software. Very interesting.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So pretty much I learned, and I can relate to what you were saying directly, even though I never really sat in front of a computer and did digital art, or however, even though maybe one day I will find myself doing it. But still, I still need to find myself willing to cope with the desires. So, that willingness to cope with the desire is what makes everything possible. So that means if my talent and inspiration that I have in abundance, I don't wait for my talent to kick in. I don't wait for inspiration to introduce itself to me. It's so there, overwhelmingly there, that all I need to do is really try to control the flow of that coming, because all this goodness can quickly become an avalanche and put an end to my artistic endeavor. And even an avalanche of goodness can put an end, a miserable end to our lives. You know what I mean? Like it said, oh, by the way, um, an avalanche is an avalanche, so you got to be very, very. So I say, um, I got to make sure that the level of my willingness to be a partner to this is is at least in a certain level that is acceptable, if not even more and more and more as it should be. But so it's almost like like identifying goodwill, just like that, in its very basic form, as a condition for art to become, as a condition for the composition and the grid and the skeleton to reveal itself. And so it's almost like something that it has a mind of its own, but still cannot uh, materialize without that crucial help from us. And that crucial help from us, even though it's just a touch and go, is almost everything. The 5% proves to be more viable and vital than the 95%. Does that make any
Okay.
sense, what I just
Okay.
described?
Interesting. Yeah, to me, maybe that 5% is that seed of the idea that becomes the finished piece. I don't know if that's what you're thinking. And then the 95% is all the work and the practice and the training we've received in order to be able to manifest, to take that seed and grow it into this beautiful plant. And here come the flowers and the blossoms. And now you've got your painting.
Yes, because the 95% proves to be very wobbly, almost like so many legs, but still it comes across as if it has only one leg and it's wobbling. It cannot just kind of balance
Or maybe
itself.
it's the foundation
It-
from which it's the mud.
yeah, okay, yeah,
The
okay,
lotus
good
flower grows
point.
from the mud at the here's the mud.
Excellent
It's
point.
wobbly, just mud, just mucky mud. But what comes from that? The lotus.
Correct.
Yeah.
Excellent point, what you just mentioned. So,
Mm.
or the combination of the two, So it's, um, but on top of everything, I realized as an artist, and I know I can discuss this with you, is that uh, if, if we pay attention to details so much so that we actually pay the most attention to that which is trivial and clichéic,
Mm.
actually,
Mm.
that because we know that we cannot entertain the idea that we cannot make a decision what is important, what is not. We have to include everything and welcome everything because we don't want to find out that we're going to invest so much and realize that that which we thought is not important ended up being the most important. And then we find ourselves completely disoriented. Uh,
Or
and
surprised and
oh,
amazed when it comes out, where you step back and you go, "Oh my God, this is
yes,
when I see my work, and to me, it's beautiful. I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for my personal inspiration, my personal satisfaction, even my personal healing, my personal therapy."
yeah.
I've been asking myself a long time a question: Am I an artist yet? So this is a painting. This is me, self-portrait. I'm going to hand it to you.
I'm gonna do this like this. Let's see if we can make it happen. Wait 1 second.
See
This.
if you can get it there.
Let's see.
So those of you who remember James Joyce, he did a book called Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. And then the Welsh poet Dylan Thomas did Portrait of the Artist as a Young Dog. And this is Portrait of the Dog as a Young Artist. And he's asking a question. You see that chihuahua? That's me. And that chihuahua is asking a question: Am I an artist yet? Look, I've got the Eiffel Tower, I've got the beret, I've got the palette. Am I an artist yet? Depends on what the end result is and whether it resonates with the human heart. So that's what that one is.
I love that. This is just almost too good to be true. So, uh, um, so in terms of um, I just had something that popped into my head, and then it blended into the forest of ingredients, and I lost it.
It
So
evaporated into the
yeah,
universe. Well,
it's
that's
there.
it.
It's there. It's
Yeah,
not. It
yeah.
didn't go anywhere. It's there. It's kind of actually widening and filling up the available space. So uh, the formation. I mean, obviously, do you get to learn what's really important in the process of you know what is the indication that something works for you? Does it have to make you feel good? When you feel good, is that an indication that the painting is good?
Yes. It's feedback directly from what's coming off the canvas. And it's a digital canvas until I print it. So what we're going to be showing here at LTV next month are printed on canvas. They're beautiful archival museum quality pigments on beautiful white canvas. So, but they begin digitally. And then you need this very expensive printer to do that transformation. And I know very early on, if I'm working on a piece, many pieces I get and I abandon them. I put them aside. It's like, nope, not getting there. But now I'm more and more able to take the idea, assemble the components, and put them together into like that one there. It's a collage of some images. There's a chihuahua, there's a beret, there's a palette, and there's the Eiffel Tower.
So, but what does it mean? I'm not going there. Elaborate on this a little bit. Like when you have a feeling, okay, I don't want to deal with it now. I'm not going to go there. What is it that's causing you to feel this way?
Earlier on, I would get frustrated because I was not manifesting something that satisfied me artistically, and that has changed. Now I'm able. I've learned enough to where, and I think that is the process with every artist. At first, you're frustrated because you're striving for something with your technique. It's true that I suppose that some people are just natural, magical artists in terms of technique, but I think most of us need some kind of training or learning curve. So what happens during that time is the rejection of a lot of pieces that, nah, it's just not happening. Yeah, let it go. Go on to take a break, go breathe, go surfing, whatever. Come back and give it another shot. Or you get busy. As you know, I've raised 5 kids. I've run many businesses. Right now, I'm making a major film. That's a big deal. I'm in a relationship. I have a show, I have a photography show. Connie and I have a photography show opening September 21st, 20 days away, less than that, in Maine. So we have a lot going on. So I've learned to compartmentalize my time. So when I have time, if I'm out on the road in our van, which is in the parking lot here right now, our Sprinter, we call it the Trust Mobile because we wrote a book called The Trust Frequency. And to trust the
I
time
love
and
it.
the timing is critical to this whole question. I cannot be doing any of this stuff when I'm at the wheel of that vehicle and we're on the highway going from Colorado to East Hampton, right?
Yeah.
So, but when I arrive, I might have some new ideas. Often they come to me when I'm literally driving across this beautiful country and suddenly there's an idea and sometimes I forget the idea, it comes back later.
Yeah. But it's never not there. It's not like it disappears and then you have to kind of pull it out from the depth that it found itself in. It's a part of who you are no matter what, and that's why I trust that the certain things that kind of um, uh, supposedly dissipate into the thin air are actually more present than I think they are, and more a part of me than
Yeah.
I'm being aware of. So I give enough credit to the process that it has enough strength to carry its own weight
Mm-hmm.
and to do
Yeah.
the work for me. Supposedly,
Yeah.
that's why when I was thinking of how is it that I'm going to blend with a community of well-established artists, which we have here in the east end of Long Island. Mind you, when I started, it was more about everyone and his uncle is an artist, and they all happen to be good artists. And I'm no background, no education, no nothing, just finding myself suddenly painting and finding myself because I was always a poet and always a musician. I could appreciate the process. I could appreciate the fact that this is not strange to me and I shouldn't be surprised. But I was looking around and I said, the last thing I needed is to ridicule myself. That scared me more than anything.
Mm.
Not
Okay.
because of that I didn't think that I can establish myself in that community as one of them. So I introduced my strength from territories that had nothing to do with art, like even as a house painter. I remember there was a period where I was very confused. Yeah. Oh, okay. How's it going? So I'm going to text you, okay? Okay, you got it. It's my cat.
knock,
Thank you, Maestro.
knock, knock, knock.
Yeah, he's one of my.
Yeah.
So I said, so just to complete the
Yeah.
thought, so I said, close your eyes and imagine that someone is calling you for a price estimate as a house painter,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then you come. So I asked myself, did you ever encounter a situation where you said, oh, this is too big, this is too demanding, this is too complicated, I don't want it. I want to have nothing to do with it. Or I cannot even give a price, it's so overwhelming. So I realized there was no wall that was so big that would intimidate me to say, I don't want to paint this wall.
Right.
So then I go to my canvas and I look at it and it looks ridiculous. It looks like it looks like the surface is intimidated, not me. It became the other way around. So I introduced my superiority from a point where I know that my strength is non-wavering. It's there. It was always there. It will always be there. So I established a reality where there's a direct and indirect camaraderie between the surface and I. So I secured a reality where I don't have to find myself every time all over again with this back and forth with the surface, with the questions, with the doubts, with the triumphing and failing, so I kind of had an agreement with the surface that we're going to be on equal terms. live and let live.
And by surface, you mean the surface of the canvas?
Correct.
Ah, right,
And
right.
then,
There you are.
then what happens? So my encounter became more immediate. So if I go to my studio, I hardly ever since day one waste time. So I go directly into the doing of it.
That's right.
And it's because also the reality that I left behind when I left the studio was of such that it's compatible with me coming and diving right into it.
You have to because you're a father of five and you have a lot
Correct.
going
So
on. But
we've
when
been
you're in your studio, it's your precious time. That's your time. And
practicality,
the
we call it.
results, I just want to
Yes.
tell you, I love the piece behind you.
Oh yeah.
I love every piece of yours. I've seen even the shoes you are wearing, I
Oh my
believe. Am I right?
goodness. Yes.
Yep. Everything is
I,
beautifully painted in the sort of in the slightly inspired by perhaps Jackson Pollock or some
I
of
know he
those.
was inspired by me.
Okay, okay, fair
but
enough.
but just to complete my thought,
Yeah.
so I said, uh, so I became a master of head games, playing head games with myself in order to position myself where I need to be to support a certain attitude. So technique oriented was the first thing that I adapted. And what it did to me and for me was that it laid the foundation unquestionably and unconditionally to support a birth of a subject matter.
Mm.
Technique, focus on technique, as if nothing else exists, gave birth naturally and automatically to subject matter. So then I don't even have to think, what is it that I'm going to be painting?
Mm.
I know
Okay.
that my attitude, supported by a head game, will give birth unconditionally to a subject matter. And that subject matter is not outside of itself, it's inside the process of painting. So I'm actually finding out already when I'm almost completing the painting what it is that I'm doing.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so again, this is apropos what you were saying. It reminded me of that feel. So, there's a thread that belongs to all artists, whether they are aware of it or not. I mean, preferably if you're aware of it, you will prevail and you will push away all these energy draining factors out of your life coherently.
So I
And
think maybe, if I may,
yeah, of
yeah.
course.
So I want to say one thing about a huge influence on me. I grew up, as I mentioned, in Durban, South Africa, beautiful subtropical city with surf and spear fishing. I was able to jump into that ocean and catch enough lobsters and spear enough fish to sell them at the restaurants and hotels to pay for 7 years of university with not costing my parents a penny. So that was pretty cool. And then learning all this art at the same time, but never ever dreaming that I could be an artist. Right.
Isn't
So
it?
then in 1969, I left and I moved to London. And here I am in London. And needless to say, I connected with the art community at Chelsea Art School in London, where John Lennon went and blah, blah, blah. And so these South African, mostly girls, good friends of mine, none of them were lovers, but they were sweetheart friends. And they literally, I could couch surf. They'd put me up. And I again found myself attending classes at the Chelsea School of Art. But what was happening at that same exact time at the Tate? Are you aware of the Tate Gallery?
Yes, yes,
The
of course, of
famous,
course,
famous
of
Tate,
course, of
Tate
course.
Gallery in London. They were having the pop art retrospective of the entire 1960s of every significant pop artist in the world at the Tate Gallery that ran for, I think it ran for 6 months. And for about 3 weeks, I went every day. Every day. It was free. And I would go and sit in front, choose a piece. I'd sit in front of a piece. It might be a Wesselmann, it might be a Dali, it might be whatever it was, but I sat in front of these pieces, just looking at them, gazing at them. I was in a bit of a holding pattern. I was waiting for my girlfriend in South Africa to come over. She was getting on a ship and coming, and I had a period of time where I was waiting. So during that waiting time, I went to that gallery every day. Huge influence that I didn't realize until much, much, much later. Because then I came to New York, and who do I meet? I meet some of those very artists whose work I was seeing. Robert Indiana. Robert Indiana,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Who did Love,
Mm-hmm.
who became a good friend of mine. I wouldn't see him for 5 years. I'd finally check in with him. Hi, Bob. Bob, called himself Bob, Robert, Indiana. What have you been up to? He said, making love. Because he was making all those giant love things.
Yes.
That was cool.
Hmm.
I had serious encounters with Warhol. I'll tell you about that at some time. I damn nearly got killed at a Halloween party at his loft at the factory
Hmm.
in on Union Square in summer and Halloween of '74, because there was a crazy off-duty cop there who thought I was doing something I was not doing and pulls a gun on me and like, oh, what the hell? So, and a bunch of other things where anyway, and Roy Lichtenstein, who was out here, I got to go and interview him and videotape a, a conference with him. So these personal influences to like hero worship these beings and observing their techniques, still not thinking I will ever be an artist doing that. But that all ends up informing what I'm doing right now. And I'm doing it for myself. I'm not doing this for commercial purposes or to sell marketable art in that sense. I think it is, but I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it for me. And
Yes.
these are just me having fun. And what I ended up doing, you know, the rapidograph pen, it's an ink pen.
Yes. Yes.
So I always carried a rapidograph and one of those black empty books. And I would be making sketches of different things. So that's how some of these things begin now. You'll see an image and you'll see a curve like this. And it's the face that I'm about to create.
Hmm.
And I just sketch it out and then figure out how to do that digitally. And I get an idea. Some come that way. Some come much more spontaneously. Some come from photography. I'll take a photograph and it'll start there.
So when do you think it's proper for you to be hard on yourself?
You know, I learned a long time ago. I was my own worst judge, like all of us. And I got a lot of criticism from certain people who we know quite well. And so that hurt. And I remembered that, right? To be falsely accused, to be misjudged.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Are difficult for someone to accept, whether you're a man or
I didn't mean to laugh, but I was laughing
yeah,
because
know.
I
You
know
understand.
what you're
You
talking
understand.
about.
You were there. You understand, my friend. However, this trained me. It taught me to really look at myself and say, okay, am I guilty as accused? And if I'm not, that's actually a very useful spiritual healing that occurs because no, I'm not guilty as accused, and therefore my self-confidence actually increases. So I probably was insecure. I was often accused of being on an ego trip because I'm very enthusiastic. I grew up among the Zulus and the monkeys in Africa, and everybody's wild and crazy. I had to tone it down when I came to this country. I don't know if that's an ego trip, because to me, ego comes from insecurity. But this question is really about security.
Yeah.
Are we secure in our own output? What are we putting out into the world? And do we feel good about it? Have we fallen short of our own vision, which is often the problem? And we always fall short of other people, always want us to be something different from what we are. So I'm perfectly satisfied with what I'm doing right now. I'm in my 80th year and I'm coming out of the closet as an artist. I've decided I am an artist. I'm having total fun being creative. And I suspect people are going to like these images that we're about to put up on the walls here at LTV.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And by the way, just to mention that we're sitting here with Andrew Bailey, and he's going to be a part of the group art show that we have here for the last 26 years here at LTV Studios. Of course, we'll give you all the information later. We have Dan Weldon's work now on display alongside the music festival of the Hamptons. So that's also the information that you can find very available all over the place. And I just wanted to mention just one thing apropos what you were saying, is that I remember even here with the shows that I have, sometimes I interview people that I don't know at all. I don't research, stuff like that. And people can say, "Can we suggest someone for an interview?" And they said, "Okay," and I say, "Okay," and then so I choose to find out while we're discussing who they are instead of googling and all this. Sometimes I do, usually I don't. But some people have this tendency to look at me and say, "Who's this guy? Why am I entrusting him with my presence here, so to speak, and all this?" So they found themselves trying to make the other person fail, you know. But I have my own way of derailing their attempts to undermine me, and
Hmm.
I'm doing it in a very intelligent, creative way. You know, I usually my technique is to ask a question that there's no way in hell they can understand. Uh,
You have such a background in Kabbalah,
no, in
for
asking
example.
questions, yes, and
Right.
also
You
so
could go cosmic.
they're
And
like, what did he just ask me? You know,
right.
so I do that until I force them to behave themselves,
Mm.
and then we can open the discussion.
Hmm.
All this. So the same with art. When people used to come and I had criticism and all that, so immediately my instinctive reaction was like, I have a feeling you're a troublemaker. This was I found, but I found myself telling a critic that happened to be a really known critic, and maybe I should have listened to him. But instead, I said, I have a feeling you're a troublemaker, and I don't do well with troublemakers. Uh, and the person, he stopped, like he didn't know he didn't know how
You
to
went
proceed
silent.
from that. Yes. So I said, okay, I achieved my goal and all this.
Mm.
But the main thing was that I always introduced volume. So quantity became quality. You know how the people used to approach me and say, why do you create so much? Why 50 of this and 70 of this and 30 of this? Where is it? Because we were raised to believe that it's not about quantity. It's about, make a few of them perfect.
Hmm.
And I said, why wouldn't I believe that I can make 50 perfect?
Variations on a theme, right?
Yeah,
To
and it will be
explore that
perfect.
possibility.
I create 20 or 50 and they will
Yeah.
all be
Yeah.
it's just that what bothers you is that I'm capable of creating 50. That's what bothers you.
Hmm.
And I won't bother to try and understand why it bothers you. It's not my business. So what happens is that if I will throw at you this high number volume of full body of work, it's your problem now. You have to deal with it. You're gonna.
I have to deal with a problem right now. I do need to go to the bathroom.
Oh, okay. So
Can I quickly take a break?
yeah,
You
yeah,
just
absolutely. And
tell
we
me
got
where to
10
go.
minutes, and then you come back
I'll
and
come
tell
right
us all
back.
about this, and I will
Great.
introduce everyone
You can
to.
entertain the masses
Yeah, I
while
think
you
we
are
have what? We have about
great.
5 to 10 minutes. So,
Where's the bathroom?
oh, the bathroom is all the way to the end of the hallway to the left, and
Okay.
you'll see the door on the left.
Should have
Okay, so
gone.
we have.
I should have gone
No,
before.
no, no, it's okay. We're here. We're here. I'm
Okay.
waiting for you. So let me just make sure that we have enough time here. Oh yeah, we have enough time here. So that was Andrew Bailey, and he's a fantastic person, as you learned already from our discussion in the last almost 1 hour. So when he comes back, I'll ask him about again. He's going to be showing with us for the month of August. I mean, for the month of October. And we're sitting here on the 5th day of September. Oh my God, I cannot believe I'm saying it. It's actually post Labor Day weekend, and um, and and we're kind of introducing ourselves to the holidays, at least the Jewish holidays, and fall is right around the corner. So that in itself is like very pleasantly humbling, to say the least. So, um, who are the other names that are going to participate with us in the month of October? It would be. Um, Let me just remember. There's so many names that are floating in my head now. That is. Um, why am I blocking? Wait, who? Now I forgot completely. Um, yeah, actually, there's a possibility that Nick Weber is going to be a part of the show also, and then we have uh, um, you know what? I'm not going to try and remember something and then make mistakes with names and all this, but mainly I feel very privileged to sit with Andrew Bailey and discuss all these things, and it just feels like I know him for so many years, and he's a force to be reckoned with, and a source of inspiration. So it's like a no brainer on how satisfying it is to converse with an individual that is just uh, introduces a reservoir of so much wealth of creativity and wealth of artistic journey that is a part of all those who make it their business and make a decision to live the life of an artist. So that's that. And I just wanted to, what is it? Let me see. Okay, here my guest is here, and we have exactly, I think, about 4 minutes through which uh, um, through which we can again conclude. If you sit down, that will be okay. This is it here. Hmm. Okay, very nice. And maybe I can I keep some of them, or is it?
Yes, I don't. I will give you that one, which is precious, and I would
This
love
one.
you to use that image for the promo if you
Okay,
can.
actually, yeah,
Let
wonderful.
me have
Okay,
that one back because
yes.
I'll make you one. It's the only one I have.
But I wanted. We have like 4 minutes left,
Okay.
so again, I mentioned when you were away that you're going to be a part of the show, and then so much more. Whether you believe it or not, we spent almost 1 hour, and that
Time
it
flies.
was fantastic to be able to sit here and to chat with you and to interact. And I had no doubt that it's going to be satisfying as it is. So I'm not surprised, and I welcome that, and I appreciate your generosity in showing up this morning and giving us the taste of your wonderful capabilities and talent. So I'll give you the last word. How about that?
The last word, just a single word,
Yeah.
like hooray! Oh,
That's fantastic.
I just want to say, Chaim, I've known you for a long time, my brother, and it's really a treat getting to know you with this new depths and through the arts and through meeting your family, your children at last. How sweet that is. And just this to be here at LTV, founded by Fraser Doherty. I was here, my band Deja Voodoo played here frequently back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Fraser was always out there dancing and going whoopah at the end of the song and on and on. So to be back sitting here at LTV and then to be part of this show coming up is a big deal for me.
Yes.
It's actually my coming out party with this art. I have not showed it yet.
I
This is the
love it.
first time I'm showing this art.
I'm humbled, and
I'm showing it to galleries and so on, but I haven't yet showed it to the public. So this is a real.
and we're going to make sure that it will be handled accordingly and with respect and with the utmost mindfulness. And so I guarantee you that much.
You said I'd be in good company, so I look forward to seeing
Yes,
the other artists
yes,
as well. 'Cause I
absolutely.
love being part of a group show. It's fabulous.
Absolutely, and a formidable one for that sake. So let's just say we're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday and as much as we're here this morning. Tuesday morning, post Labor Day weekend, September 5th, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello Show. And again, thank you to my guest, Andrew Bailey. And hey, if you're a parent, you know that school is around the corner and you cannot just fool around and entertain any ideas other than taking care of your kids. So good luck with that. And of course, we love you. We know you're out there supporting, and we don't take it for granted. God bless.